a Río Blanco, al Copín, a las y los mártires por la defensa de los bienes de la naturaleza. Muchas gracias.
Venezuela has denounced the strengthening of the US economic blockade and sanctions. Women-led anti-government protests continue in Chile for the second consecutive day. Guyana's Supreme Court has prevented the Elections Commission from declaring a winner of the general elections. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Katrina Goss. Venezuelan Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza denounced on Monday the latest threats launched against the country by the United States, Brazil and Colombia as part of a coordinated strategy that foresees the tightening of the economic blockade and further sanctions. Arreaza highlighted that the latest escalation in the attacks on Venezuela was coordinated during the recent visits by the Brazilian and Colombian presidents to the United States. In a meeting with the diplomatic corps accredited to Venezuela, the foreign minister stressed that the US is planning to crush the Bolivarian government in a flagrant violation of international law. Arreaza also explained how the sanctions imposed against Venezuela in 2014 have been strengthened in the last 3 years. He recalled that Venezuela acts in accordance with international law to ensure peace.
We're acting in compliance with international law. We're acting with our armed forces, with our intelligence agencies to thwart any further attacks, any false flag operations, any false positive, to preserve Venezuela's peace, to ensure that elections are held as provided in the Constitution.
And on Monday, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro ordered the second phase of the 2020 Bolivarian Shield military exercises. Our correspondent Leonel Retamal brings us more details.
Military leaders and troops were ready to receive the order to begin.
Let's start this exercise to give peace to our country. Go forth.
Military leaders delivered details and goals of the deployment of troops.
We will carry out resistance drills in a number of cities. On top of that, we will do intelligence and counterintelligence drills, as well as hunt for armed groups. Our goal is to find any type of threat, be it from foreign forces, from paramilitary groups, from mercenaries, from armed groups in general. These exercises are taking place on a national level and also involve the Bolivarian militias.
The exercises include an ample understanding of the aggressions that Venezuela faces, many of which go beyond military threats.
We will continue searching for a peaceful resolution, so that our government and our institutions continue working, so that people can continue to resist these attacks, the crimes against humanity promoted by the United States government, via their sanctions. These sanctions that take food away from our people, that take away the right to medicine and to development.
The drills will be conducted in 5 states, including in the capital city of Caracas. Instructions given by the commanders highlight that these exercises aim to measure the armed forces' ability to respond to an attack. This is the doctrine of the Civic Military Union, which integrates workers in defending strategic industries.
These exercises are being done with little notice, so that we can see how quickly our troops respond to threats. It's important to know their capacity to respond in defense of our homeland.
These drills are part of exercises that started on February 15 and 16, as ordered by President Nicolás Maduro, who has denounced the permanent attempts by the United States to generate false flag attacks with the aim of overthrowing the government.
This is about peace, stability, and national independence. It's about the territorial integrity of the country. The armed forces are a protective shield for peace, for the right of our people to development and stability.
As such, the armed forces have often shown signs of unity and respect to the Constitution, by recognizing the legitimacy of President Maduro.
On March 16th, Brazilian deputies will call for the impeachment of far-right President Jair Bolsonaro due to his attempts to provoke an institutional crisis and incite his supporters to close down Congress. Congressman Alexandre Frota explained that the complaint will be presented this March 16th and stressed that the group of deputies will prepare for an impeachment trial against Bolsonaro. The request will be based on Article 85 of the Federal Constitution that establishes the liability of the President of the Republic when his acts violate the free exercise of all constitutional powers. The move comes as opposition is mounting against the attempts of the Bolsonaro administration to destabilize Brazil's constitutional order. International Women's Day saw huge marches in Argentina calling for the legalization of abortion. Women gathered in front of the National Congress to call for the swift introduction of a draft bill by the executive to guarantee legal abortions. Several unions supported the rally and called for a 24-hour work stoppage. Argentina has been a pioneer in Latin America in legalizing same-sex marriage and passing a gender identity law. However, legal abortion remains an outstanding demand. Should it be legalized, Argentina would be the 5th country in the region after Cuba, Uruguay, Guyana and Mexico, although abortion is only legal in Mexico City. 4 Argentinian farmers' unions will launch strike action on March 16th after the government of President Alberto Fernandez increased tariffs on soybean exports from 30 to 33%. This is the first strike since Fernandez took office in December. Our correspondent Juan Carlos Patolota brings us more details in the following report.
We're live from Santa Fe Avenue in the capital's northern sector, right across from the Argentina Rural Society, which is just 150 meters from the Embassy of the United States to the Republic of Argentina. This illustrates not only the Rural Society's geographic but also ideological.
Welcome back. Late this Monday in Guyana, President David Granger released a statement assuring the population that he had acted in accordance with the Constitution and the laws of the country and appealing for calm. The statement also called on the Elections Commission to execute its mandate to deliver credible elections to the Guyanese people. In the meantime, the 2 main political parties continue to claim victory following the March 2nd general elections. Voting results were again indefinitely postponed on Sunday following a Supreme Court ruling. Guyana's Chief Justice, Roxanne George, upheld an injunction preventing the country's Elections Commission from declaring a winner and said she would begin hearing the case on Tuesday to determine whether election officials should resume verification of votes in an area known as Region 4. The decision further postpones the official announcement of the results in an election process that has been marred from the beginning by accusations of fraud.
Once the court has jurisdiction to determine the issue that we have raised, which is a narrow issue, whether or not Mingo should have complied with Section 84. Does the court have jurisdiction to determine that issue? The court said yes. And the Chief Justice said that the order will remain in place. The injunctions are going to remain in place. So obviously, whatever is beyond the jurisdiction of the court will not hear it. But the court has pronounced that it has the jurisdiction to hear and determine the relevant issues. And that is whether or not Section 84 should be complied with, whether the verification exercise should be done. That's important.
Meanwhile, the Guyana Elections Commission has said it will abide by the court's decision to halt the announcement of results. Region 4 results continue to be at the core of the concerns, as the opposition has complained they were released without verification at more than half of the polling stations, and that the results were inflated to put President David Granger ahead of opposition challenger Irfan Ali. International observers have also voiced concerns over the process. Chileans flooded the streets of Santiago de Chile on Sunday to mark International Women's Day. Despite the risk of repression, women mobilized to demand that their voices be heard. Protests in the Chilean capital continued this afternoon, and a massive pot-banging protest was called for 6:30 p.m. local time in the immediate vicinity of Plaza Italia. In other cities such as Valparaiso and Antofagasta, thousands of women also took to the streets. In Concepcion, secondary school students, women and officials of the National Federation of Health Workers marched demanding full equality between men and women. This is the second day of protests convened by several feminist movements in Chile, which seek to make visible women's demands, including for an end to gender violence, non-sexist education, equal rights at work, including equal pay, social security and respect for their reproductive rights. And women in Mexico, angry over growing gender violence and impunity, are taking unprecedented measures, including a national strike. On Sunday, thousands of women marched through the Mexican capital and rallied in its central square, demanding justice. The mobilizations continued on Monday as thousands of women stayed home for the day, thus vanishing from subways, supermarkets, workplaces and school campuses. The unprecedented strike came amid a growing number of femicides. 2 high-profile cases last month, a woman who was disemboweled by a partner with a kitchen knife, and a 7-year-old girl who was kidnapped and killed, have outraged the Mexican population and prompted an extraordinary day of reckoning for the country of 120 million people. On Monday, Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte told the population to stay at home and ban public gatherings as well as a series of football matches to combat the threat of the coronavirus. The unprecedented measures were announced after Italy reported 97 more deaths on Sunday, taking its death toll to 463. Italy has now seen more than half of the 862 COVID-19 deaths reported outside of China.
I'm going to sign a decree that can be summarized as follows. Stay at home. There will be no longer a red zone or zone 1 or 2 in the peninsula. It will be just Italy. Italy as a whole protected area.
And the total number of countries and regions affected by the coronavirus outside China has reached 101, according to the daily situation report on COVID-19 released by the World Health Organization. Bulgaria, the Faroe Islands, French Guiana, the Maldives, Malta, Martinique and the Republic of Moldova have all reported their first cases in the past 24 hours. Meanwhile, South Korea reported 248 new cases, bringing the total to over 7,000. Meanwhile, mainland China reported no new locally transmitted coronavirus cases outside the epicenter of Hubei province for the second day running on Monday. There are now over 105,000 confirmed cases of COVID-19 worldwide. Stocks are plummeting as investors fear the spread of the coronavirus and an oil price war. The Dow closed with a 7.8% drop on Monday, the largest since the 2008 financial crisis. Oil prices plunged by 30% overnight on Sunday, while coronavirus-related panic led to one of the worst trading days since 2008. The epidemic, which has hit most of the world's major economies, has seen a fall in demand for oil, while a meeting of the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries failed to reach an agreement to further cut production in order to shore up prices. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia slashed its prices and pledged to unleash stored supply onto the market. Many experts believe the decision will start an all-out price war, having already caused the biggest percentage drop since 1991 at the start of the first Gulf War. And authorities in Africa are taking steps to combat the coronavirus. Almost all governments have established strict screening procedures at points of entry, especially airports. Cases of coronavirus have been confirmed in Algeria, Tunisia, Morocco, Egypt, Senegal, Cameroon, Togo, South Africa and Nigeria. All African airlines have cancelled scheduled flights to China, except for Ethiopian Airlines. In Nigeria, the virus has infected 2 people so far. Meanwhile, Rwanda has moved to step up prevention measures despite having no confirmed cases of the coronavirus. Egypt confirmed the first reported death on the African continent on Sunday. And South Africa confirmed 2 more cases over the weekend and is only surpassed by Senegal with 4 cases. And Ecuador announced its 15th case of COVID-19 on Sunday. Health authorities confirmed that the latest case was a patient reporting mild symptoms. Meanwhile, Costa Rica issued a yellow alert as it confirmed its 9th coronavirus case, including 3 US citizens. The move allows the Costa Rican government to mobilize additional resources to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Likewise, concern is growing in the region as Argentina reported its first death due to the novel coronavirus on Saturday. So far, the virus has reached 10 countries of Latin America. US President Welcome back. The families of the passengers killed when a missile shot down Malaysia Airlines Flight 17 over eastern Ukraine in 2014 placed 298 white chairs outside the Russian embassy in The Hague on Sunday in a silent protest to demand Moscow's cooperation in the investigation into the downing of the passenger jet. The chairs were laid out in rows like seats in an airplane to represent the victims. Families stood in silence for 2 minutes holding signs, including one that read, "Impunity is unacceptable." The protest came on the eve of the Dutch trial against 3 Russians and a Ukrainian charged with murder for their alleged roles in the missile strike. The missile was launched by separatist forces. Russia denies any involvement and dismissed the international investigation that led to the 4 suspects being charged, stressing it is prejudiced against Moscow. European Union leaders met with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan on Monday to warn him not to trigger a renewed migrant crisis on their southeastern border. The EU is considering taking 1,500 child refugees to ease pressure on the Greek islands facing a new wave of arrivals from Turkey. Tens of thousands of asylum seekers have been trying to pass through the land border from Turkey for a week after Ankara announced it would no longer prevent migrants from trying to cross into the European Union. Afghan President Ashraf Ghani and Prime Minister Abdullah held simultaneous inauguration ceremonies on Monday as they continued to dispute the presidential election results. Afghanistan was set for 2 presidential inaugurations on Monday as both President Ghani and his political rival Abdullah claimed victory in the September 28th elections and held parallel events. Ghani was declared the winner by Afghanistan's Independent Election Commission on February 18th, while Abdullah rejected the result and pledged to form his own government, also proclaiming himself the winner. Abdullah's camp issued invitations to a parallel swearing-in ceremony on Monday morning at a similar time to that planned by Ghani. Experts and diplomats say a lack of cohesion among Afghan political leaders will make talks with the Taliban difficult, which are due to start on Tuesday. And turning to South Africa now, the presidency faces an uphill battle after President Cyril Ramaphosa failed to make a key court submission on time to defend his reversal of senior state prosecutor appointments that his predecessor, Jacob Zuma, had signed just days before he was removed from office. Presidency Director General Cassius Lubisi responded to the court challenge by one of the affected prosecutors, Advocate Ron Mankwari, despite the fact that Ramaphosa had been cited as the first respondent, which required him to confirm that Lubisi was empowered to act on his behalf. In accordance with the South African Constitution, the decision to reverse the appointments could only be made in the exercise of the executive powers of the president. Thousands of public sector workers in Burkina Faso marched against the government's decision to cut their salaries. Last month, the government announced new tax reforms impacting the allowances and bonuses received by civil servants that will result in salary cuts. The decision is part of austerity measures implemented by President Mark Kabore. The protesters have accused the government of passing the burden of its inefficiency on to workers. They have since threatened to go on a national strike if the decision is not reversed. And we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media, Facebook,